επόμενα χρόνια ο πληθυσμός της Ευρωπαϊκής Ένωσης θα συνεχίσει να μειώνεται, γεγονός που θα μπορούσε να έχει αρνητικό αντίκτυπο στην οικονομία και στην κοινωνία της Ευρωπαϊκής Ένωσης και μπορεί να επηρεάσει τη θέση της στον κόσμο. Αυτή είναι η παραδοχή της Ευρωπαϊκής Επιτροπής, με την οποία ξεκινάει την παρουσίαση των μέτρων που προτείνει για την αντιμετώπιση της δημογραφικής κρίσης στην Ευρώπη. Οι κίνδυνοι για τους οποίους προειδοποιεί η Ευρωπαϊκή Επιτροπή είναι πολλαπλάσιοι για την Ελλάδα, αφού στη χώρα ο πληθυσμός γυράσκει με ταχύτερους ρυθμούς από ότι ο ευρωπαϊκός μέσος όρος. Το 2040 εκτιμάται ότι το 43% του ελληνικού πληθυσμού θα είναι ηλικίας άνω των 65 ετών. Σύμφωνα με τις προβλέψεις, οι πολίτες σε ηλικία εργασίας θα μειωθούν σε 6 εκατομμύρια το 2050. Πρακτικά αυτό σημαίνει ότι η Ελλάδα θα χάσει περίπου 500.000 εργαζόμενους σε λιγότερο από 20 χρόνια. Ένα ισχυρό πλήγμα στην παραγωγικότητα και στην ανταγωνιστικότητα της οικονομίας της.
Ο Fengler, επικεφαλής της εταιρείας ερευνών World Data Lab, μετήχε στην τρίτη δημογραφική σύνοδο του Economist στην Αθήνα και παρουσίασε αναλυτικά στοιχεία αλλά και προτάσεις για την αντιμετώπιση του δημογραφικού προβλήματος στην Ελλάδα. Mr. Fengler, thank you for joining us in Euronews. Demography is a growing concern for most European countries, but it seems that in Greece it's a more pressing problem. Why is that?
Absolutely, indeed. Demography is one of the defining features of Europe's policy challenges. And in Greece, it's pronounced because the number of young people, including working age, which includes you and me, is shrinking faster than the rest of Europe. So instead of having more people who can and will work, there'll be less. So there need to be measures to counter what's been called the decline of the working age population.
You have spoke about two unpopular policy measures that could help increase the Greek workforce. Could you walk us through these measures?
Yeah, the two, I call it unpopular also because they're the easiest, at least quantitatively easiest. One is to increase the retirement age, because today people are, healthy and often dynamic in their 60s and even 70s, and some of the jobs can also be done by people who are what we considered older people. And so if we change the way we think about retirement, that will add a lot of potential new workers and contributors to the Greek economy. The other is immigration. There's in other parts of the world, there's a lot of young people, of talented young people, and if Europe would incentivize young talents, not just to go to the US, America, but also to Europe or to Greece, then we would also be able to close the gap we will be facing.
Let's see each one separately. You talked about increasing the retirement age. How much can we work? I mean, in what age? The 70s? The 80s?
Well, first of all, why not? And I think people should decide themselves. And I think we need just to change a bit more our overall mentality to work in life. There's a lot of studies that actually show that when you work very, very hard till a certain age and then suddenly you stop, it's not very healthy. It would be much better if you have a gradual, much more flexible way, self-determined way to decide when and how long you work. Now, it's important to separate the different type of jobs. Jobs our parents or grandparents had, maybe in coal mines, in factories, are not prone to somebody who is in his 60s or 70s. But many of the white-collar jobs, actually people get better. People get better at editing. People get better in human resources. People get better at many of the social jobs if you are older. And so why should somebody who is very strong and talented, even as a journalist, in being age 65, suddenly stop to work? So that itself, allowing for that flexibility, would open a lot. The other part is that in Greece, like in the rest of Europe, many people start to slow down quite dramatically in their 50s. And I think countries like Greece cannot afford anymore to have very strong, talented workers in their 50s not working.
What do you mean they slow down?
Well, they work less. They are partially in a country like Germany. We have this what's called partial early retirement at end 50s, but also in Greece especially, but in other countries in Southern Europe, many of there's a lower share of women participating in the workforce, and then they still work very hard, often with their families, but they're not part of the formal workforce. And there is another potential of adding additional talent to the labor force.
And you also mentioned migration. Greece receives increasing number of migrants that try to pass to the rest of the European countries. Do you think there is a way we could use these people, probably keep them in the country and include them in the workforce?
It's a very challenging topic because not, every migrant can be easily integrated or is willing to integrate, and so there's not a simple solution. However, put it that way, Greece is a very good location because it's the center of the world. It's in a very pleasant climate, so people want to come to Greece. And if you make it easier for people to come and locate in Greece, people from Northern Europe, also people from other parts of the world, then as Spain is now doing relatively successfully, in Portugal, that will already add to the economic momentum. With migrants, it depends a lot on skills and their capacity to integrate into the Greek society, the Greek economy, or for those who have difficulty learning the Greek language, then to see if they can work in an international setting and then for that they would need English. So there's a lot of variables in there, but clearly, and I know the discussion in other countries, including my home country, if people can work and want to work, it'll be very logical that people would be allowed to work. And there's a lot of also service jobs in the, giving the Greece tourism industry is so strong where people could be integrated. So it depends. It's not easy to integrate everybody, but those who are ready for integration would be very helpful for an economy like Greece to go in that direction.
And are there ways to increase participation among the labor participation among the Greek population?
So there's two other main sources of additional labor force for Greece in the future. Then maybe let me premise this. It's very important to understand that babies are important and we all love our children, but in the short term that will not solve the issue. Fertility will not solve Greece's short or medium term demographic challenge, nor does it for Germany or other countries. This is very long and medium term. So in the short term, you need to make use of the existing population that you have. And there's a big gap between those who do work, which is roughly 4 million Greeks, and those who theoretically could work, which is more than 6 million in Greece. Now, where do these extra 2 million people could they come from? One is, as I mentioned before, women who drop out of the labor force in their 30s, in their 40s, and have a lower rate compared to Spain or other, even southern countries. And if you would just match, say, Spanish or Portuguese labor force participation rate of women, that would give you roughly 10 million people every year. And Greece would only need 30 million to close the gap that is opening up. The other bigger measure is in education, which is an area Greece is already quite strong. Greece is known for tech. Greece has very strong female and male participation rates in university and secondary school. But like any other country, there's still a small gap to close from basically 88% to 100%. And if Greece would match, say, where Sweden or Holland is, that would again add more people into the productive workforce, because people who have education at secondary or tertiary level are likelier to have a good job and a job later on, and also to have longer job, because it's exactly the type of people that I mentioned that can easily work into their 60s and beyond.
Mm-hmm. But we keep connecting the size of the workforce with the competitiveness and the productivity of a country. And given the enormous progress that has been made in new technologies and AI, isn't this idea a bit outdated? I mean, technology is already replacing humans in so many levels. Don't we need less working people in the future?
Well, somebody still has to manage and design the robots, even though it's a very good point. The thing is, I would say to your viewers at Euronews that we had that discussion before. We are in a new cusp of AI, but we have been there when the computer was invented. We were there when the internet started. And it was always a belief, well, there'll be less jobs. No, there were never less jobs. There were different jobs. and more productive jobs, and I would say more fulfilling jobs, because you don't have to do more of the repetitive standard jobs. My mom was a secretary. She had to type all the letters, the same letters over and over again. And so now things become easier, but there is still work for secretaries, for accountants, because it's different work, maybe more analytical work, or better work. A doctor can give better diagnosis. So all of this where AI can help. Greece today has a population of 11 million, and roughly 4 million are in the formal workforce. So already today you have quite a gap between those like you and many of your viewers who are part of the official workforce and those who are benefiting from the productivity of those of the workforce. So at least history told us there will always be new work and more meaningful work. And as long as if a country has challenges, be it in the transport sector, be it in health, be it in education, there's a need for people to solve those, or if at all design robots or data systems to improve the health, the education, the transport system. So far in our history, the issue that technology has led to, at least in the recent history, to mass unemployment, the industrial obviously transformation that happened in that early transition, but in the long term there were always more jobs, not less jobs.
Thank you very much for your insight.